Live on tape without a studio audience from South Wales, it's Worldview with Dennis Campbell.
Welcome to Worldview for the week beginning Monday, September 23rd, 2013. I'm Dennis Campbell. Now, this week in history, the first Model T Tin Lizzie rolled off of Henry Ford's assembly line in 1908. It was available in any color as long as it was black. Zsa Gabor was arrested for slapping a Beverly Hills police officer, and sprinter Ben Johnson was sent home from the Seoul Olympic Games in 1988 after testing positive for steroids. Who knew where that would all lead? Now, we begin this week with a look at the every 5-year IPCC Climate Change Report being released this week. Now, the deniers, led by UK House of Lords Viscount Matt Ridley, who happened to have penned an extraordinary deniers manifesto for the Wall Street Journal, would have you believe that the globe is indeed cooling and we're having milder weather changes, and it all just means we'll have longer growing seasons here in the northern climes of the UK and more temperate growing conditions all around. In other words, we're just having a Disneyland climate. Well, our first guest says the evidence suggests something very different. Our good friend Robert Hunziker joins us again to discuss the pending IPCC report, which is due soon. Robert, welcome back to Worldview.
Hi, Dennis. How are you? Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. Now, can you do me a favor? Explain to the folks here what the IPCC ARA5 report is and why this particular one is so important.
Well, it's the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change Report. They started these in 1990, and they come out every 5 or 6 years. And the way it's constructed, they receive input from several hundred scientists and science peer review papers over the course of 4 or 5 years about the climate, about various aspects of the climate. And then they go through a very laborious process of screening this information and reviewing the information to put it into the final document, which we should start to see the first part of this here within the next week or so. I might just mention, there's quite a bit of controversy about the whole process as to how the IPCC works. Everybody's a volunteer, for one thing. Secondly, if you really look into the nuts and bolts of how they do this, it's somewhat equivalent to the United States Constitutional Convention in the 18th century, but having every colonist come in and make some input into the document, not just the convention themselves. That's how watered down this gets, if you will.
Isn't there also a bit of controversy saying that some people think that, for example, this report should come out with greater frequency as opposed to every 5 years? Why is that? I
haven't seen too much about that, but I know what you're saying. Because the science is changing very rapidly. Very, very rapidly, in fact. And they're just for example, only within the last year, Dennis, only within the last year did they finally get some very precise measurement tools into the West Antarctic to see what's happening with the ice, where it was 100% certain. Before, it was a little bit of guesswork involved. Only within the last year. And we now know the West Antarctica is melting at a pretty good clip because they actually were able to go out onto that peninsula of ice, and they were able to use a hot drill and go all the way through it, a mile, and then set up instruments on the top and the bottom for the first time ever. Well, that's not going to be included in this IPCC report. You know what I'm saying? So yes, that's the criticism. The other criticism is that some people think it ends up being too political because almost every government in the world must approve the final document. It ends up being a consensus of a consensus of a consensus of a consensus.
Let me jump in there because it seems like everybody on a political level wants to impact this report. I read last week that Soviet President Putin wants to make sure that it talks about efforts to geoengineer the climate. You wrote an article for us about the UK House of Lords Viscount Ridley basically saying about the report, hey, nothing to see here, we're doing fine. So I would guess that based on your recent article, you have evidence that suggests differently. So let's break that down a little bit.
The Wall Street Journal article by Matt Ridley, it's one of the more Pollyannish reports I've seen. This is he's a Goldilocks climate guy. It's not too hot, not too cold, it's just perfect. And we're going to have a Disneyland type of a climate for the next 70 years. And furthermore, in his article in the Wall Street Journal, this is going to be quite healthy for extending farming to higher altitudes, latitudes rather, and for tree growth, for crop growth. We'll get moderate increases in rain where it's now arid. This sounds like the panacea. This is what we've been waiting for years to hear, that everything's fine. We don't have to worry about global warming.
Yeah, but Robert, I mean, let's be real here. The Disneyland does have lovely rides for children, but it also has Space Mountain, which is one of the more terrifying rides we've ever been on. So we sort of have to figure out where are we? I mean, for example, we were talking this week earlier about the floods in Colorado, which have now been classified as a 1,000-year event. You and I had a conversation about Eastern Europe's floods being a 500+ year event. The China-Russia border, the floods are visible from space. What the heck is going on here?
Well, that's where people like Matt Ridley really miss the mark in these articles, because what's clearly going on is we're having dramatic atmospheric changes, and it's happening. Why? Rutgers University has done some wonderful groundwork on this, and they've discovered the problem. The problem is the Arctic is warming up 2 to 3 times faster than anywhere else on the planet. So what if the IPCC report says the temperatures aren't quite as warm as they thought they're going to be, and we have all of these climate denial people keying off on this thing, the world's going to be fine, so we can drill. In point of fact, what's happening is the Arctic is melting. 40% of the Arctic is gone, and because of the warmth in the Arctic, what drives atmospheric jet streams is you have the cool airs and the warm airs. From the tropics, you get the warm airs. From the north, you get the cool airs. And those cause these jet streams to drive and flow like the ocean currents under the ocean. Now, with too much warmth coming up in the Arctic vis-a-vis the tropics, it's causing these jet streams to prolong and slow down and waver. And they impact the climate for the entire northern hemisphere. That's why you get these stuck weather patterns, blocking patterns, and it happened over Colorado. And what happened over Colorado is that the rains they got is what you would expect on the coast in a tropical storm, but it was in the interior of North America. And that would be a pretty severe tropical storm because it's a 1 in 1,000-year type of a flood, they say.
Yeah, but we're also seeing, more and more of these. I mean, I can remember when the standard was the 100-year flood, because particularly for insurance and for other reasons, they always, historically did their data research and set their premiums on the basis of the 100-year flood line as to whether or not you were in a floodplain or not. When we start talking about a 100-year flood, every year, and we start talking 1,000-year flood events and 500-year flood events, what is it going to take for people to take this seriously, Viscount Ridley aside?
I guess just more damage, more climate damage. After a while, it's got to sink in, doesn't it? Because, listen, don't forget, Dennis, a year ago, Colorado had their worst drought ever, the most severe drought they've ever had, for the same reason. You had a blocking pattern of the jet streams, although it was at the top of the jet streams. Here, high pressure, now we had the low pressure block, and they got the flooding a year later. Let's wake up here. What happened in Europe over the last year? They had the same thing, a blocking pattern, and you had 500-year floods in Europe.
Well, I mean, I can also look here in Wales where, a year ago we were, record rains were falling. They would literally, every day on the evening news say that we've had a month's worth of rain in a single day. And, I can look at stretches of roadway that were washed away. Even here, just in the village where I am, an entire wall of water came through and knocked down a huge stone fence. And now we've just gone through a blocking pattern that's given us one of the warmest, driest periods in history. So it is very, very strange. We certainly hope people start to pay attention.
Well, we do. And of course, with this new IPCC report coming out, we already kind of know, because of the leaks, it's going to show a little moderation in the warming. Remember, it's still warming, just a little less than they thought. And, now you've got on top of this, look at the political action that's taking place out there. The Prime Minister Abbott of Australia did what the other day? He got into office. First thing he did was cut all programs that have to do with climate change and climate change control. Abolished them. He abolished them. Just like that. So you can bet he's getting all kinds of telegrams and thank yous from the Koch brothers and everybody else. They're rah. We got the IPCC report coming out. We've got Prime Minister Abbott sticking it to these greenies. And boy, we can go wherever we want to go with this planet from this point forward. Because Viscount Ridley just proved in the Wall Street Journal that the climate going forward is going to be change, is going to be beneficial for people and for the planet. So let's drill, let's frack, on and on. And they're going to use this as ammunition. And it's such a minor thing. It is sickening. These people are sickening.
He's Robert Hunziker, freelance writer for dozens of progressive publications, including our own UK Progressive, and he's an expert on this whole climate industry. Thank you so much for joining us again.
You're bad, Dennis. Really good to see you.
Hey, Robert joined us today from his home in Los Angeles. You're watching Worldview with Dennis Campbell. Keep it right here.